Americans who actually moved to Canada, how would you rate the decision and why? Just moved to Ontario a few months ago. Two really positive things, so far. I am amazed by how civil everyone is on the roads. People actually merge calmly and sensibly. Yeah. There are a few assholes, of course, but generally speaking the stereotypical niceness is real. My husband broke a bone on a Saturday. We were at the hospital for less than a full hour before he was ready to go home. Total cost, no health card for us, was about $50. Not $50 copay and $250 bill for radiology later. Actually just $50. Even without access to the health care that Canadians get, it was still faster and cheaper than any hospital visit we've had in the States. My friend moved, reluctantly, to Canada because they didn't approve his visa renewal about a year ago. Now says it was damn blessing in disguise that it happened. They had some health issues and they are all taken care of pretty much for free. The only complaint he has is the cold climate, but he says the pros outweigh the cons by a large margin. Today I'll learn everyone that moves to Canada gets health issues they are able to get taken care of. Been here since 2002. Am generally very happy to be here. People are kinder, less religious nutbars, more respectful in general. My son was born with rare disorder and we did not pay 1 penny for his NICU stay. After any baby is born a nurse comes to your house to check on how things are going and will come back if you need a bit of help. Maybe this was because our child was more fragile. Friends in the States were blown away by this. Families get a child benefit subsidy based on income, even moderate incomes get this extra dollar. Excluding healthcare, cost is higher. Gas, food, booze, housing. Big discounts in shops, like bargain racks with 50 to 75% off stuff, are few and far between. Wages don't always keep up compared to US. I live in border area so I can always do some cross-border shopping. We have a housing crisis where I live, but at least here I feel there is political will to do something about it, unlike most cities in the US where they seem paralyzed by competing interest groups. It has always bothered me that in the States people who struggle in any way are looked upon as moral failures instead of a reflection of a failed society and in need of support. Wonderful. Have run into a few health problems since moving up here that would have left me bankrupt in the US. And, for the record, no, there is not a months and months wait to see a doctor here. There is no real longer wait than what you'd get in the US. Wanna know how easy it was to get my healthcare card? I walked into the non-government-run registry place, waited maybe 5-10 minutes, showed proof of residence and my visa. They said, "Okay, here's your temporary card, a permanent one will be mailed out to you soon." And a few hours later I went out and used that temporary card with absolutely zero issues. Talk about no stress. Wonderful experience. Would definitely recommend. And we get to sit here and laugh at everything happening down there. I moved in 2008. I'm now a citizen. Warning, generalizations ahead. My reason for moving is I felt better in alignment with the Canadian culture than the US. I feel there should be safety nets, we should pay into a medical system everyone can benefit from, we should have programs to help those in need. I work, I make money, I pay taxes. I want some of those tax dollars to help the people who can't work or can't make a living wage, for whatever reason. Morally, this feels like the right thing to do. Fuck bootstraps. Not everyone is lucky enough to have them. Honestly, moving was the best thing I've ever done. There is a cultural respect and freedom in Canada I never really felt in the US. In the US I always felt like I was moving 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Some of this was due to the ever-growing cost in healthcare. Seems like I was forever in debt for past medical or avoiding getting medical attention because I felt I couldn't afford it. I've been through both healthcare systems in the US and Canada. Canada has some problems, some provinces more than others, but I will take Canada any day of the week over the US. Here is a good example. I had to get an MRI in the US and I got one in Canada. Both were for non-emergency reasons. In the US my insurance provided for pre-approved MRIs. The doctor submitted the request. We had to wait for the insurance to okay it. We did the MRI, insurance was billed, they billed me back the full amount, and I spent quite some time on the phone with insurance sorting it out. At the end of the day I think it cost a few hundred. In Canada, I probably waited an extra month or two over the process to be approved. In the US, I got the MRI. Done. That was it. Simple. Easy. If I needed the MRI for an emergency reason, I would have one that day. My aunt lives in Canada. She waited about 4 months for a new hip. She has no waiting when they thought she had cancer, which she did, and they successfully treated. Total cost, 0. A month after I moved, someone rear-ended me rather severely. I remember arguing with the EMTs on scene about getting in their ambulance and going to the ER. I didn't know how the system worked, and I was more concerned with crippling debt over a possible spinal injury. There is something very, very wrong with this mindset. Before someone says yeah, but you pay more in your taxes for it. No. No, I don't. I did the math. My taxes, medical insurance, and copays in the US were more than just my taxes in Canada. My overall overhead is lower here. The cost of living is a bit higher, but so is my wage. The ability to have vacations was huge. It wasn't until I moved did I have 2 weeks off in a row. In the States there was always this pressure to not take vacations, because if the employer could do without you for 2 or 3 weeks, then they don't need you. Also, no fighting for time off. If you need a day for a family emergency, need to go to a dentist, vote, or take care of some other personal thing, you can arrange it. I've never had an employer in Canada give me shit about it. Something I didn't expect after I moved, but getting away from the guns was huge. Guns are a way of life in the US. Hell, I even had them when I lived there. Guns just aren't a thing up here. I know people who have guns and go shooting, but it isn't cultural necessity. That fear of needing a gun is gone. I guess since I grew up under it, didn't realize it until after I was away from it. Americans carry around a ton of fear. It's a huge weight off your shoulders to not be afraid all the time. There is a more relaxed feeling up here. People are more interested in the pursuit of happiness than this weird crab bucket mentality in the States. Up here it's I got mine, and you should have yours as well, where the States feels more like I got mine, fuck you. That's a wide sweeping generalization, I know. But if I have to generalize an average population, that's sort of how I read it. Yes, there are wonderful, fantastic, warm people in the States, but you do have Trump as a president, with 40% support, and that says a lot. Canada has its fair share of weirdo idiots as well. We are not immune to this. I know a couple of Canadian Trump supporters. The nice thing is these people brag about not voting, which I don't argue with. Overall, I work, I pay taxes, I'm starting my own business soon. I own a house. I'm a functional member of the society I live in. I want to contribute to the society I agree more with. Moving was the best choice I've ever made. When in Canada, I feel like I'm home and not just crashing on someone's couch. I moved to Canada in 2011 from California and received my citizenship 2 years ago. I don't regret it at all. Of course the healthcare situation is nice. I've never had a problem getting the care I need. Most of all, people are a lot calmer, less religiously zealous, and there are fewer people who have gone off the rails due to their political beliefs. I honestly don't miss anything in the US. All the family I cared about in the US are now dead. I had no real job prospects until I came up here, and I married the love of my life here. 10/10. I will never go back to live in the US. Looking at relinquishing my US citizenship, but that's like $2,500 plus. I moved here in 2010 at age 18. Met a really great guy. Later on we had 2 kids and one has a medical condition requiring 24 hours monitoring, D1D. Because of the medical care alone, I will never move back. I remember paying $40 copay, $2,500 plus deductibles, and that was on my parents' plan, which they paid an insane amount for. I also received maternity leave for a full year, both pregnancies, with a bi-weekly pay of $1,000-ish. I think the amount has increased, I'm not 100% though. I can walk into most clinics and get an appointment. The longest I've had to wait in the ER was like 3 hours. It was for severe flu, so not a big emergency. But I remember waiting 7 hours to get seen in Houston. So NPD. People are way fucking nicer, but there are assholes everywhere. Cannabis is booming. My spouse is a senior PM at a large LP and makes bank. Also, my favorite part, I had a co-worker complaining about immigrants. I guess she assumed because I'm white, I would take her side? And how they didn't pay taxes, didn't work, and just wanted to live here for free. I told her I was technically an immigrant and the look on her face was priceless. Fuck her. Anyways, Canada is awesome. Move if you want. It's cold as fuck. And I have yet to see a bag of milk. 10/10. I moved here because of university, and that alone was one of the best decisions ever. I got Canadian citizenship from my father and my total bills for 4 years will be $20,000 for tuition. At my home state UNI, that would be only 1 year. Healthcare is also need to have. It still feels weird that I can go in for a minor thing and not be scared to rack up a lot of bills. Almost seems fake until I don't get that bill in the mail. I moved to Montreal, which I know, Quebec. But honestly, I prefer it to my hometown. As much as I complain about public transport every day, I wouldn't give it up since I have to admit it could be worse. My city in the US didn't really have any. Also the people seem nicer and more open to be friendly and start up conversations with you even if they are in a rush. I also love how much community-sponsored event there are here, not just things from the church. Also since I moved to Montreal it's helped me strengthen. I never practiced French and now I'm trilingual. Though I know this is unique to my situation lol. Cons of course are the very high taxes, things generally being more expensive, etc. but I feel like I can live with that. It really isn't that hard once you become financially responsible and learn how to budget yourself. Overall, I love it. Life seems easier? Like you get more opportunities because, opposed to where I lived in the States, everything isn't just about how self-made you are, but rather how we help each other get up. Well, I guess in my experience. I honestly hate having to go back home in the States and become homesick even after a week. Life just isn't the same and the people aren't the same. I love it up here. Been here for 5 years. I moved to Montreal and eventually Vancouver for work. I don't really care for it and I'm hoping to move back to the US within the next couple years after I sort out my dual citizenship, which sounds backwards, but we have a baby that's dual now and we've already put forth the majority of time and difficult legwork toward it. I mean it's alright, Vancouver especially mostly just feels like another US city, but the taxes and general cost of living is insane. Combined with the lower wages compounded with a terrible exchange rate it just doesn't make financial sense, and I'm a proud American that identifies more with US culture anyway. Work permits and general immigration obligations have been a huge pain, and apart from the birth of my baby, I feel like my life progress outside of my career has been going in slow motion if not on pause. Moving back has become a frequent daydream that I'm looking forward to making a reality. I've been in Vancouver since 2008. Moved for grad school, and am now a Canadian permanent resident with wife and job and life here. I actually feel more American living here, and I'm quicker to defend some of America's actions than I was when I lived in the US. Given the last several years, I am feeling much more politically motivated than previously and am a bit sad that I'm not living in the US to become more involved beyond financial contributions. Thankfully, I can still donate money to politicians that I believe in, such a rare occurrence. I'm also feeling a bit guilty about not being as engaged as I should be with issues here, in Canada. There's certainly enough crap here that needs attention as well. The situation in the US just feels so out of control, that's where most of my attention goes.